The morning sun rose over Kavros like it had for 300 peaceful years. Administrator Velris stood on the observation deck of the mining colony, watching the purple grass sway in the gentle wind. Her people, the Thanari, had built something beautiful here. Gardens surrounded every building. Art covered every wall. Children played in the streets without fear. Then the sky turned black. Velris felt her heart stop as massive ships blocked out the sun. They were ugly things, all sharp edges and weapon ports. Krath Dominion vessels. Raiders, killers. Sound the alarm, she whispered. Then louder. Sound the alarm. Security Chief Kento was already moving. His claws flew across the communication panel. The distress beacon launched into space, screaming their location to anyone who would listen. The emergency sirens wailed across the colony. Get everyone to the shelters, Kento said. His voice was steady, but Velris could see the fear in his eyes. The Thanari were not warriors. They were artists, miners, philosophers. They had maybe 200 security personnel with light weapons. Against this, the first missile hit the spaceport. The explosion shook the building. Velris grabbed the railing to keep from falling. Through the window, she saw fire and smoke rising into the sky. They are not even talking to us, Kento said, staring at his screens. No demands. No warnings. They are just attacking. Velris ran to the colony-wide communication system. Her hands shook as she pressed the button. All citizens of Kavros, this is Administrator Velris. Move to the underground shelters immediately. This is not a drill. Take only what you can carry. Help your neighbors, stay calm. We have sent for help. But even as she said it, she wondered if help would come in time. The Krath ships landed in waves. Their soldiers poured out, tall and armored, carrying weapons that turned buildings to ash. Kento organized what defense he could. Mining equipment became weapons. Excavators blocked streets. Plasma cutters became crude rifles. The Thanari miners fought with tools meant for breaking rocks. Not warriors. They died by the dozens. Velris worked through the night, coordinating evacuations, treating wounded, keeping people moving toward safety. A young mother ran past her, carrying 2 children. An old artist helped a wounded miner walk. Everyone was scared. Everyone kept moving. By dawn of the second day, the Galactic Council responded to their distress call. Velris listened to the message with growing horror. Colony Kavros, we have received your emergency beacon. Be advised, all Council fleets are currently engaged in 3 separate sectors. The nearest available fleet will reach your position in 47 standard cycles. Hold your position. Help is coming. 47 cycles. Almost 7 weeks. Kento looked at the tactical display. We have 6 days before they breach our last defenses. Maybe 7 if we are lucky. Velris closed her eyes. 47 cycles. They might as well have said 47 years. Tell no one, she said quietly. Keep fighting. Keep hoping. Over the next 5 days, the Thanari retreated deeper underground. The Krath destroyed everything on the surface. Beautiful gardens turned to ash. Sculptures that had stood for centuries crumbled under weapon fire. Art galleries became rubble. The purple grass burned. Kento's makeshift militia fought for every meter. They collapsed tunnels behind them. They set traps. They ambushed patrols. But mining tools could only do so much against military weapons. Every day they lost more ground. Every night they counted their dead. In the deep shelters, Velris tried to maintain order and hope. She organized the children, keeping them busy with stories and games. She rationed food and water. She held gatherings where people could share memories of better times. Tell me about your first day on Kavros, she would say to the refugees, and they would talk, and for a moment they would remember joy. A young engineer named Silas worked frantically in the old communication room. The main array is destroyed, she told Velris. But I found the backup system. It still works. Can you boost the distress signal? Velris asked. Silas shook her head. Better. I can broadcast on all frequencies. Military channels. Civilian channels. Emergency bands, everything. Someone might hear us. Do it, Velris said. Cast our message into the void. Someone somewhere might listen. Silas programmed the message carefully. Colony under attack. Civilian population. 6,000 souls, coordinates, time remaining. Help needed urgently. She sent it out into the galaxy, a desperate prayer to anyone who would hear. On the 5th night, Kento came to Velris with his report. His uniform was torn. Blood stained his fur. They will breach the final doors tomorrow. Maybe the day after. We have nothing left to stop them. Velrus nodded slowly. She had known this moment would come. Gather everyone in the central chamber. I should speak to them. The next morning, 6,000 Thenari stood together in the largest shelter. Children held their parents. The elderly sat with quiet dignity. Kento's remaining security forces stood at the entrances, ready to make a last stand with empty weapons. Velrus looked at her people. Her voice carried across the chamber steady and clear. We are Thenari, she said. For 300 years we built something beautiful on this world. The Krath can destroy our buildings, but they cannot destroy what we are. We are artists. We are thinkers. We are people who chose creation over destruction. If this is our end, we die as we lived. With dignity, with courage, with love for each other. We die with hope even when hope seems foolish. Above them, they heard the sound of drilling. The Krath were coming through the final barriers. The sound grew louder, closer. Parents held their children tight. People held hands. Some prayed. Some cried quietly. Kento and his guards raised their tools, ready to fight to the last. The drilling stopped. In the sudden silence, they heard something else. Something that sounded like thunder, like the sky itself was tearing apart. Then everything shook. The Krath thought it would be easy. The Thenari had no real weapons, no real soldiers, no hope. Commander Zralth watched from his flagship as his forces surrounded the mining colony. In 3 days, maybe 4, they would have full control. Then the mining operation would belong to the Dominion. He did not expect the Thenari to fight at all. But they did. With tools and desperation, they fought. On the first day underground, Kento gathered his remaining fighters. 42 security personnel, maybe 300 miners willing to hold a weapon. Against thousands of Krath soldiers, we cannot win, said one of the miners. His name was Drovix, and his hands shook as he held a plasma cutter modified to shoot in bursts. No, Kento agreed. But we can make them pay for every meter. We can buy time. The council said help was coming. In 47 days, another miner said bitterly. We have maybe 6. Kento looked at them all. Then we make those 6 days count. Every hour we survive is an hour closer to rescue. Every Krath we stop is one less our children face. We are miners. We know these tunnels. We know how to bring down stone. Let us teach them what happens when they come into our home. They fought in the dark. The Thenari knew every tunnel, every shaft, every weak point in the rock. They would collapse entire sections, trapping Krath patrols. They rigged old mining charges in narrow passages. They used ventilation shafts to move unseen, but the Krath kept coming. For every one they stopped, 10 more took their place. In the shelters, Velrus worked to keep order and hope alive. 6,000 people packed into spaces meant for half that number. The air was stale. Food ran low. Children cried in the dark. Every night, Velrus held gatherings. She called them remembering circles. People would sit together and share stories. They talked about the gardens they grew, the sculptures they made, the music they played, the life they built before the Krath came. Tell me about your favorite sunset, Velrus would say, and they would remember, and for a moment the fear would fade. An old artist named Throvin stood one night. His hands were wrinkled, his voice soft. I painted the sunrise over the eastern gardens for 20 years. Every day the light was different. Every day I saw something new. That is what I will take with me, whatever comes. 20 years of beauty. No one can take that from my memory. People cried, but they also smiled. This was who they were. This was what the Krath could never destroy. Silas worked constantly in the old communication room. She had sent out the initial distress call on all channels. Now she maintained it, sending updates every few hours. Still no response, she told Velrus on the 3rd day. The council knows. Everyone knows. But no one is coming. Keep broadcasting, Velrus said. Someone might hear. Someone might care. Who? Silas asked. Who else is out there? Velrus had no answer. On the 4th day, they lost the north tunnels. Kento's forces rigged explosives and brought down half a mountain on the Krath advance. It bought them 12 hours. It cost them 32 lives. Kento came back covered in dust and blood. Not all of it was his own. Velrus helped him wash in the medical station. We are running out of charges, he said quietly. Running out of everything. They have started drilling through the final barriers. I can hear it. How long? Velrus asked. 2 days. Maybe 3 if the rock is harder than we think. They both listened. Somewhere above, the sound of drilling echoed through stone. getting closer. Always closer. On the 5th day, the food ran out. Velrus distributed the last of the water rations. 1 cup per person. The children got a little extra when no one was looking. That night, fewer people came to the remembering circle. They were too tired, too scared, too hungry. But Velrus held it anyway. She sat in the dim light and spoke. I want to tell you about the first time I came to Kavros, she said. I was young, scared, I had never been off my home world. But I looked out the transport window and saw the purple grass and the red mountains, and I thought, this is where I belong. This is where I will build my life. And I did. I built it with all of you. Whatever happens tomorrow or the next day, I built a life here. I loved here. I mattered here. That is enough. A few people wiped tears. A few nodded. One young mother held her sleeping child and whispered, that is enough. But Velrus wondered if it was. On the 6th day, the drilling sounds changed. They were louder now, closer. The Krath would break through the final doors in hours, not days. Kento gathered his remaining fighters. 23 left. They stood at the main entrance to the central chamber with tools they could barely lift. This is it, Kento said. When they come through, we hold them as long as we can. Give the others time to say goodbye. No one spoke. What was there to say? In the central chamber, Velrus gathered everyone together. 6,000 Thenari stood in silence. Some prayed. Some held each other. Some simply stared at nothing, too exhausted to feel anymore. Velrus looked at her people one last time. She thought about her speech, the words she had prepared, but standing there looking at all those faces, she realized speeches did not matter anymore. We are Thenari, she said simply. We built beauty in this place. We loved each other. We did the best we could. That is all anyone can do. I am honored to have known you all. The drilling stopped. Everyone froze. The sudden silence was deafening. Then they heard it. A sound like nothing they had ever heard before. A sound like reality itself was tearing open. The ground shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. Somewhere above them, something massive had arrived. The Krath communication suddenly went wild. Velrus could hear it through Silas's equipment, screaming, panic, orders being shouted. What is happening? Someone asked. Kento pressed his ear against the rock wall. I hear ships, new ships. Big ones and something else. Something in the atmosphere. Moving fast. The sound of drilling did not resume. Instead, they heard explosions. Weapon fire. Shouting. Then a new voice came through the communication system. A voice speaking in clear galactic standard. A voice they had never heard before. This is the Terran Coalition Navy. You have attacked our friends. You have one chance to withdraw. Silas looked at Velrus with wide eyes. Terran? What is Terran? I do not know, Velrus whispered. But something in her chest that had been cold for 6 days suddenly felt warm. The voice spoke again, and this time there was steel in it. Your chance is over. Then the thunder truly began. Commander Zralth of the Krath Dominion had conquered 17 worlds. He knew victory when he saw it. The Thenari were defeated, hours away from total surrender. His troops were already drilling through their last defenses. Then his sensor officer screamed, ships, multiple ships. They just dropped out of hyperspace directly above us. Zralth spun toward the display. That was impossible. No one dropped from faster-than-light travel that close to a planet. The gravity wells made it suicide. Even a small miscalculation would tear a ship apart. But there they were. 12 vessels. Large ones. And they were moving impossibly fast. Identify them, Zralth snapped. Unknown design. Unknown energy signatures. They are launching fighters. Hundreds of fighters. And they are not slowing down. Zralth watched the display in growing disbelief. The fighters were entering atmosphere at speeds that should burn them to ash. But they were not burning. They were accelerating. This is the Terran Coalition Navy. A voice spoke across all channels. Female, calm, deadly. You have attacked our friends. You have one chance to withdraw. Terran? Zralth had never heard of them. He checked his database, nothing. Who are they? No one answered. His crew stared at the screens as the unknown ships took positions around the planet. Zralth laughed. 12 ships against his fleet of 40. Tell them we refuse. All vessels open fire. The largest enemy ship, the one broadcasting the warning, absorbed his entire fleet's first volley. Their shields held. Easily. Your chance is over, the voice said. Then hell arrived. The Terran ships moved like nothing Zralth had ever seen. They did not turn gracefully like normal vessels. They moved like predators, sharp and aggressive. They used the planet's gravity to whip around at impossible angles. Their weapons fired in coordinated patterns that seemed to predict exactly where his ships would be. In the first minute, he lost 3 cruisers. How? His tactical officer gasped. How are they doing this? Zralth had no answer. He watched as a Terran destroyer performed a maneuver that should have torn it apart, using the moon's gravitational field to slingshot directly behind one of his battleships. The battleship exploded before it could turn. On the ground, Kento pressed his ear against the tunnel wall. He could hear fighting above. Not the drilling. Not Krath orders. Battle weapon fire, explosions, and something else. Something that sounded like thunder constantly falling. What is happening? Drovix asked. Someone came, Kento whispered. Someone actually came. Velrus stood in the central chamber, listening to Silas's equipment. The Krath communications were chaos, screaming, panic, retreat orders. The Terrans are landing troops, Silas said, her voice shaking. I can hear them on the military channels. They are landing right on top of the Krath positions. Show me, Velrus said. Silas pulled up a visual feed from one of the few remaining surface cameras. What Velrus saw made her legs weak. Things fell from the sky like meteors. They slammed into the ground with such force that the impacts registered as small earthquakes. Then they stood up. Soldiers in armor that made the Krath look like children. They were bigger, faster. And they fought with a precision that looked almost like a dance, a deadly dance. The Krath fired everything they had. The Terran soldiers barely slowed down. They moved through weapon fire like it was rain. Their own weapons made sounds like thunder. Where they aimed, Krath fell. They are heading toward the underground entrances, Silas said. They are coming to us. Kento gathered his fighters. We do not know who they are. Be ready for anything. But before anyone could prepare, they heard a new sound, footsteps, heavy ones, coming down the tunnel. Coming fast, Kento raised his tool weapon. His hands shook. They had survived the Krath for 6 days. Had they only bought time for different conquerors? A figure appeared in the tunnel entrance, massive, armored. The armor was marked with symbols they did not recognize. A helmet covered the face. Weapons hung from every part of the suit. Everyone froze. The figure raised its hand slowly, empty, non-threatening. Then it reached up and removed its helmet. It was a face none of them had seen before. Flat features. No fur, no scales. Skin that looked soft but eyes that looked hard. The creature spoke in perfect galactic standard. Stay down, folks. We've got this. Who are you? Kento managed to ask. The creature smiled. It was not a threatening smile. It was tired, warm, real. Captain Marcus Webb, Terran Coalition Marines. We heard someone calling for help. Sorry we're late. More figures appeared behind him, all in similar armor, all carrying weapons that hummed with power. But their helmets were off now. They looked at the Thanari with something that looked like concern. Medical teams, move up, Captain Webb said into his communicator. We've got civilians here. Lots of them, scared, hungry, some wounded. He turned back to Kento. Where's your leader? Velrus pushed through the crowd. She stood before this strange being, this Terran, and felt tears on her face. I'm Administrator Velrus. This is Colony Kavros. You're safe now, Captain Webb said gently. I promise you, you're safe. More Terrans flooded into the chamber, but not soldiers. These carried medical supplies. They moved among the Thanari with quick efficiency, checking wounds, passing out water, distributing food packets. One of them, a smaller Terran with kind eyes, knelt beside a group of frightened children. She pulled out a small device and showed them pictures. See these? These are my kids back home. You remind me of them. We're not going to let anything bad happen to you. A child reached out cautiously and touched the Terran's hand. The Terran smiled and gently squeezed back. Above them, the battle continued. But the sounds were moving away, being pushed back, conquered. Velrus looked at Captain Webb. The council said help would come in 47 days. You came in 6. How? Webb's expression darkened. We didn't come from where the council is. We were on the other side of the sector. When your engineer broadcast that signal on all frequencies, we picked it up. When we heard what was happening, we came as fast as we could. But that's impossible. The distance. Yeah, well, Webb said. Humans don't really accept impossible as an answer. We burned out half our fleet's jump drives getting here. But we made it. Why? Velrus asked. Why risk everything for people you have never met? Webb looked at her like the question confused him. Because you needed help. That's enough. Another voice came through his communicator. The same female voice from earlier. Captain Webb, situation report. Civilians secured, Admiral. We're starting evac protocols. Medical teams are moving through. Good work, Marcus. We're mopping up the last of them in orbit. The Krath flagship is trying to run. Should we let them go? Webb looked at Velrus. At the scared children. At the exhausted, starving people who had fought for 6 days with no hope. Negative, Admiral. Don't let a single one escape. I want them to remember what happens when they attack civilians. Copy that. Chen out. Velrus heard the cold steel in that exchange and felt something she had not felt in days. Safety. Real safety. Around her, the Thanari were beginning to believe it too. Some cried. Some laughed. Some simply collapsed in exhaustion and relief. They had called for help into the dark, and against all odds, against all reason, someone had answered. Someone called humanity. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the TCNS Indomitable and watched the Krath fleet scatter. They had expected easy prey. They found humans instead. 3 more cruisers trying to break orbit, her tactical officer reported. Don't let them, Chen said calmly. I want every Krath commander to go home and tell their people exactly what happened here. Show them what happens when they touch our friends. The Indomitable's spinal railgun charged. It was a massive weapon that ran the entire length of the ship. Most species thought railguns were outdated technology. Humans had turned them into something terrifying. The targeting computer locked on the fleeing Krath flagship. Distance 300,000 kilometers. An impossible shot by any reasonable standard. Chen pressed the firing button herself. The railgun slug crossed the distance in seconds. It punched through the Krath flagship's shields like they were paper, through the armor, through the ship. Out the other side. The flagship went dark and began to spin, crippled but intact. Disable, not destroy, Chen said. I want prisoners. I want them to talk about this for the rest of their lives. On the ground, the battle was already over. The Krath forces broke the moment the humans arrived. They scattered into the wilderness. They tried to hide in the ruins. Everywhere they went, humans found them. Captain Webb moved through the destroyed colony with his company. They cleared buildings with frightening efficiency. Every room, every corner, every shadow. When they found Krath soldiers, the fight lasted seconds. The Krath were not weak. They were experienced raiders. But they had never faced anything like humans in battle. Webb's squad cornered a group of Krath in what used to be a school. The walls were covered in children's artwork, now burned and broken. It made something cold settle in Webb's chest. Come out, he said in Krath language. Now the Krath came out firing. Their plasma rifles lit up the room. Webb's armor absorbed the hits without slowing. He moved forward, his rifle answering with short, precise bursts. 3 Krath down, 4, 5. The last one dropped his weapon and raised his hands. Webb walked up to him slowly. The Krath was shaking. Webb grabbed him by the armor and lifted him off the ground. You attacked a school, Webb said quietly. You shot at children. The Krath stammered something. Webb did not care what it was. He threw the Krath against the wall hard enough to crack the alien's armor. Secure him, Webb said to his squad. Medical treatment. Then prison. Let him think about what he did. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Chen, looked around at the destroyed classroom. This is why we came so fast. Yeah, Webb agreed. Yeah, it is. In the underground shelters, Corporal Lisa Tran sat with a group of Thanari children. They were scared of her at first. The armor, the weapons, the scars on her face. But she showed them her tablet with pictures of her own kids. This is Emma, she's 6. And this is Jason, he's 4, see? I'm a mom too. One small Thanari girl reached out and touched Lisa's hand. Will the bad ones come back? No, sweetie. We're not letting them come back, ever. How do you know? Lisa smiled. Because that's what humans do. When we make a promise, we keep it. And I promise you're safe now. The girl climbed into Lisa's lap and fell asleep. Lisa held her gently. This small alien child who looked nothing like her own kids but felt exactly the same in her arms. Around her, other Marines were doing the same, comforting scared children, sharing food, telling bad jokes to make people laugh. This was the other side of humanity. The side that came after the battle. In the medical station, human doctors worked alongside Thenari healers. The Thenari were amazed at human medical technology. Scanners that saw inside bodies, medicines that worked across species, techniques that saved lives thought lost. "How do you know so much about our biology?" a Thenari doctor asked. "You just met our species today." The human doctor, Dr. Sarah Kim, smiled. "We scanned your medical databases the moment we arrived. Our AI translated and analyzed everything in about 3 minutes. Then we synthesized compatible medicines during the drop. Humans are good at adapting." "In 3 minutes? That is impossible." "Yeah, we get that a lot." On the surface, human engineers were already working on repairs. They brought up heavy equipment from their ships. Construction drones, fabricators, materials. Within hours, they had temporary shelters erected. Power restored. Water running. Velrus watched in amazement as a human engineer used a device to scan a destroyed building, then printed a replacement wall panel in minutes. "This technology," she said. "How far ahead are you?" The engineer, a young man named Rodriguez, shrugged. "Not that far. We just really like solving problems, and we're really stubborn about it." "What is stubborn?" Rodriguez grinned. "It means we don't quit. Ever. Someone tells us something is impossible, we take it as a challenge." By nightfall, the Krath were gone, captured or fled. The space around Kavros was clear. 12 human ships maintained orbit. On the ground, human marines patrolled the perimeter. Human medics treated the wounded. Human engineers rebuilt what was destroyed. And in the central shelter, Velrus gathered her people one more time. 6,000. The Nari looked different now. Still exhausted, still scared, but also hopeful. Alive. Saved. Captain Webb stood beside Velrus. "At her request, my people," Velrus began. 6 days ago, we thought we would die here. We called for help and were told it would not arrive in time. But someone heard us. Someone came anyway. These humans crossed impossible distances, risked their ships, risked their lives for us, for people they had never met." She turned to Webb. "I do not have words enough to thank you." Webb looked uncomfortable. "You don't need to thank us. You held out for 6 days against impossible odds. You protected your people. You kept hoping even when hope seemed foolish. That's courage. We just finished what you started." "You saved us," Kento said from the crowd. "You saved yourselves," Webb replied. "You held the line. We just showed up for the last part. And honestly," he smiled, "we're glad we could help. That's what humans do. Someone needs help. We come running." Admiral Chen's voice came through the communication system. "Attention Colony Kavros. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Coalition Navy. The Krath Dominion fleet has been destroyed or captured. Your space is secure. Terran engineers will assist with reconstruction. Terran medical teams will remain until all wounded are treated, and Terran Marines will guard your world until Council forces arrive." She paused. "You are not alone anymore. You have the protection of the Terran Coalition. And I promise you on my honor the Krath will never threaten you again." The Thenari erupted in cheers. Some cried. Some hugged each other. Some hugged the nearest human, who looked startled but hugged back. Velrus found Captain Webb later, standing in what used to be the colony garden. Everything was burned. The sculptures destroyed. The purple grass turned to ash. "We will rebuild," she said quietly. "But it will never be the same." Webb nodded. "No, it won't. War changes things, but..." He knelt and dug in the ash. Found something. A seed pod, somehow intact. "Life finds a way. You'll rebuild. And we'll help. For as long as you need us. Why?" Velrus asked the question that had haunted her all day. "Why do you care so much?" Webb stood and looked at her. "Because in a universe full of predators and prey, someone needs to be the protector. Someone needs to stand up and say, 'Not on my watch.' Humans decided a long time ago that we would be that someone. Maybe it makes us crazy. Maybe it makes us arrogant. But when we hear someone calling for help, we answer. Every time. No matter the cost," he handed her the seed pod. "Plant this. Let it grow. Remember that help came. And know that it will always come as long as humans are around." Velrus held the seed pod and cried. Not from fear anymore. From gratitude. From hope. Humanity had roared across the stars and answered their call. And nothing would ever be the same. 3 days after the battle, the Galactic Council fleet finally arrived at Kavros. Admiral Thex, a distinguished Relian commander with 40 years of service, expected to find a massacre. His ships dropped out of hyperspace prepared for a recovery mission. Instead, he found human warships in defensive orbit and a planet already secured. What in the seven systems? Thex stared at his displays. Get me Admiral Chen, now. Sarah Chen's face appeared on the screen. She looked tired but satisfied. Admiral Thex, welcome to Kavros. Sorry we started the party without you. How are you even here? You were in the outer reaches. That is 600 light years away. Our best calculation said 47 days minimum travel time. Chen smiled. We made 6 consecutive FTL jumps without recalibration. Burned out half our jump drives doing it. Cut the trip to 6 days. Thex felt his blood chill. 6 jumps without recalibration? That is suicide. The navigation errors compound. 1 degree off and you miss your target by light years. Or jump into a star. Or into solid matter. Yeah, our pilots are really good. Really good? That is not good, that is insane. You risked 12 ships, thousands of lives on a navigation miracle. Chen's smile faded. Admiral, 6,000 civilians were about to die. We did what we had to do, and we'd do it again. Thex had no response to that. He had commanded fleets for decades. He had made hard choices. But he had never done anything that crazy. That brave. That human. I need to see the colony, he said. On the surface, Thex walked through what used to be Kavros with his security detail. Human engineers were everywhere. They had erected temporary structures that looked more permanent than temporary. Power grids hummed. Water systems flowed. Human Marines patrolled with Thanari security forces. And everywhere, Thanari and humans worked side by side. Velrus met him at the central shelter entrance. She looked exhausted but alive. Very much alive, Administrator Velrus. I am deeply sorry we could not arrive in time. The Council had no available forces. We came as fast as we could. Velrus smiled. You came as fast as you thought possible. The humans came as fast as necessary. There is a difference, Thex winced. It was true. The Council had followed protocol. Done everything by the book. And if only the Council had answered, 6,000 Thanari would be dead. How did they even hear your distress call? Thex asked. A young Thanari stepped forward. Silas. I broadcast on all frequencies, including restricted military channels. A human exploration ship picked it up. They relayed it to their nearest battle group. And the humans came. On a signal that was not even meant for them, Thex said quietly. They heard someone calling for help, Velrus said. That was enough. Thex found Captain Webb supervising reconstruction of the school. The walls were already going up. Human construction drones worked alongside Thanari volunteers. Captain Webb, I need to understand what happened here. Webb looked at him. What happened is we heard a distress call. We responded. We kicked the Krath off this rock. Pretty simple. Nothing about this is simple. You performed maneuvers that should be impossible. You fought with tactics I have never seen. You coordinated ground and space forces with precision that takes years to develop. How? Webb shrugged. Humans have been fighting wars for our entire history. Longer than most species have had spaceflight. We got good at it. Really good. And you risk your lives for strangers? People not even your own species. Admiral, humans figured out a long time ago that our people means everyone who needs help. Species does not matter. Distance does not matter. If someone is in trouble and we can do something about it, we do. That is just who we are. Thex looked at the children playing nearby. The Nari and human kids together, sharing toys and laughter like they had known each other forever. You are either the bravest species in the galaxy or the most foolish. Webb grinned. Can it be both? That evening, a Krath prisoner was brought before Admiral Thex. The prisoner's name was Zralth, former commander of the Krath fleet, now a broken, defeated warrior. Tell me what happened, Thex demanded. Zralth stared at nothing. They appeared from nowhere, moved like demons. Fought like nothing I have ever seen. My fleet outnumbered them 4-1. We had superior positioning, better weapons, more experience. None of it mattered. Why? Because they were not fighting to win a battle, Zralth said quietly. They were fighting to protect their friends. Every move they made was calculated to destroy us while minimizing Thanari casualties. They did not care about their own safety. They only cared about saving the civilians. He looked up at Thex with haunted eyes. What kind of species does that? What kind of species charges into impossible odds for people they just met? We captured one of their Marines, wounded, trapped. My soldiers offered him a deal to surrender. He refused. Said he had to make sure the Thanari children got to safety first. He fought until he collapsed. Then their medics pulled him out and our medics tried to kill him. His own people stopped us, made us treat him properly. What kind of species shows mercy to enemies who showed them none? Thex had no answer. The next day, a memorial service was held for the fallen. 412 Thanari died defending their home. 38 human Marines died in the assault. They would be buried together in a garden that humans promised to help rebuild. Velrys spoke first. We lost friends and family, but we gained something too. We learned that the universe is not only full of predators and prey. It also has protectors. People who hear a cry for help and answer no matter the cost. We learned about humanity, and we will never forget. Captain Webb spoke for the humans. His voice was rough with emotion. We came here because it was the right thing to do. We lost good people doing it, but I asked each Marine who died if they would do it again. Knowing the cost, they would say yes, every time. Because that is what we are. That is what we believe in, protecting those who cannot protect themselves. After the service, young Silas found Captain Webb. She looked up at this tall human who had saved her people. Captain Webb, I have a question. Sure, kid. What is it? Why did you come? The council could not spare ships. They said help would arrive in 47 days. Why did you risk everything for people you never met? Webb knelt down to her level. His eyes were kind. Because that is what humans do, Silas. Someone needs help, we come running. Does not matter if we have never met. Does not matter if it is impossible. We come anyway, because in a universe full of darkness, someone needs to be the light. Someone needs to answer when people call. And humans decided a long time ago that someone would be us. But what if you had died? What if all your ships were destroyed? Then other humans would have come. And more after them. Until you were safe. That is the promise. That is what being human means. Silas hugged him. Webb hugged her back gently. 2 weeks later, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. The story of Kavros had spread across known space. The species who heard it reacted in different ways. Some were grateful, some were suspicious, some were afraid, but the Krath Dominion canceled 12 raiding campaigns. Immediately, the Thanari formally requested a permanent alliance with the Terran coalition. The humans agreed. Other species began reaching out. Maybe they thought, maybe these humans were something new, something different, something the galaxy needed. In the rebuilt garden of Kavros, Velrys planted the seed pod Webb had given her. Human engineers had helped restore the soil. The Nari children watered it daily. It grew fast, pushing up through the earth like it was eager to prove that life continued. Around the garden, human Marines still stood guard. But now they stood beside Thanari security forces, partners, friends, allies. Velrys watched the sun set over the red mountains, painting the purple grass gold. The grass was coming back. The buildings were rising again. The art was being recreated. Life went on. But it went on different now. Better. Because they knew something the rest of the galaxy was just learning. When you call for help in the dark, when hope seems foolish and death seems certain, there is a species out there who will answer. A species too stubborn to accept impossible, too brave to ignore a cry for help, too kind to let innocents die when they can do something about it. A species called humanity. And they will come. They will always come. All you have to do is ask. The galaxy had learned this truth at Kavros. The Krath had learned it in fire and defeat. The Council had learned it in shame and awe. The Thanari had learned it in hope and gratitude. They believed help would never arrive. Until the skies split and humanity roared, and nothing would ever be the same.